Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great day. My name is Jane Sacco, and I'm one of the members of the Professional Development Committee. I hope folks can hear me okay. I have the great pleasure of introducing our presenters this morning, who are Chelsea Stone, Jenn, Hart, and Lakshmi, who are joining us from the University of Calgary. So a few words on the presenters before we begin. Chelsea Stone is a fourth-year kinesiology student at the University of Calgary. Chelsea has served on the Residence Student Association as the VP Hybrid Residence and Student Representative for Yamnuska Hall. As a student leader, Chelsea made things happen in residence, from implementing residence-wide programs to proposing residence facilities improvements. She has a demanding schedule at school, yet she balances her academics and extracurricular commitments with ease. Jenn Hart is a fifth-year kinesiology student at the University of Calgary. Jenn has also served on the RSA and is the VP Events and Events Commissioner. Jenn currently works as a student desk assistant in residence. As a student leader, Jenn has coordinated residence-wide events and made significant facilities improvements through her Quality Money grant proposal to make residence facilities more accessible to students in wheelchairs. Lakshmi is currently working in residence as the manager for Housing Services and Residence Education. She is in her sixth year at the University of Calgary, and one of her favorite aspects of the job is working with amazing student leaders and advising the Residence Student Association. During this presentation this morning, you will have the opportunity to ask questions throughout the presentation by putting them into the group chat box. And at the end of the presentation, our presenters will be happy to answer all the questions that you've been generating and thinking of. So without further ado, I'm very happy to turn over this presentation to our fabulous presenter this morning. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Janie. Welcome, everyone, to our Friday webinar on Residence Eco Move Out. My name is Lakshmi, and I will be introducing the presentation and turn it over to our student leaders. First of all, Residence Eco Move Out program is one of the most successful sustainability initiatives our campus has seen at the University of Calgary. This initiative was entirely driven by student leaders, and that is why we have two amazing student leaders who will be presenting this webinar. We will be sharing our good practices and lessons learned along the way for the past 3 years. What is about Residence Eco Out program and the vision that we had created 3 years ago? What the Eco Move Out program looks like at the University of Calgary will also be shared. We will talk a little bit about our key players, our partners, and how we collaborate with them. And then our funding sources, where our funds came from for our budget. And then finally, we will be sharing the implementation steps if you would like to have this on your campus. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so feel free to ask those. And also, we will be posting our contact information if you would like to contact us directly. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Chelsea Stone, who is going to share the vision and the background of the Residence Eco Move Out program.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Lakshmi. So as you can see here, this was actually from our busiest day throughout Eco Move Out. So the reason why we started this is that we noticed that there were a lot of international students and out-of-province students that would come with all their bedding, kitchen supplies, and they would have to leave it at the end of the year, and they would leave it in residence. So the person who started this was Adam Swartz 3 years ago, and he decided to implement this program as an outlet for students to put these items to a better cause. We decided to divert these items, and we worked collaboratively with the Resident Students Association, which Jen and I were a part of, the Students Union, Resident Services, Waste Management, the Office of Sustainability, Goodwill, and Top Flight. So, as we said before, the vision of this was to divert a small portion of the waste that was accumulated throughout the school year towards a better cause. When this initiative first started, there was a Battle of Alberta that was in place through Waste Management, and it was seen as a competition between the University of Alberta and ourselves. As much as this was what we initially used as something to work harder for this, it eventually has fizzled out, and the main priority has been on the diversion and putting the goods to a better cause. So here you can see what the inside of one of our toters looks like. So how it works at the University of Calgary is that it runs for 2 weeks in April. So this is when students will be moving out after final exams, we have placed the eco move-out bins at 3 locations, which corresponds to where students live. We have 2 outside of the first-year residence buildings, and then we have a central location that is for all the apartment complexes on our campus. And at each of these 3 locations there, we have placed a small and a large C container in which we separate different goods such as clothing, kitchen stuff in the big containers, and then in the smaller container we had non-perishable food items and electronics. So how it works is that students bring their items to the location, and there is staff that we have at each bin which weigh each object based on their category, and then they put them in the appropriate bins. We work collaboratively with the food bank on campus, Goodwill, and eCycle in order to take back these goods. So I'll be turning it over to Jenn now to talk about our key players.
Hi everyone. So some of the key players that we worked with to make this program occur on our campus was Resident Services and the Resident Students Association. So both these 2 organizations first worked together to actually create the initiative and look for sources for funding to get the project off the ground. We also worked with Waste Management, who was another source of funding, as well as the toters in which all the items were placed into. eCycle, who provided metal cages for the electronics that were dropped off by students. Goodwill provided the trucks to come and pick up all the items that we had collected over the 2 weeks from students. Pods donated the actual containers that housed all of the staff tables, the toter bins, and obviously the items that we collected. We also had a very good relationship with Parking Services, as the toters did take up some of the parking spots in the actual residence areas. So we worked with them to mark off those spots before it happened. Next, we'll move on to funding. So Resident Services had committed $2,500 a year to help with this program. Adam Swartz initially applied for the Students Union Quality Money Grant and received $6,500 for 3 years of the program. And this was basically to ensure that the program could run for a minimum of 3 years and then allow the students to look for further funding sources to keep this going. Waste Management had also granted 4 years of $5,000 also to keep this program afloat.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about the budgets that we went through in the past 3 years. So this is our year 1 budget. As you can see, we have a $5,000 commitment from Waste Management, $1,700 from Resident Services, and the $2,000 you see there is from the Quality Money Grant that we received. So the total expenses for this year was around $7,000, and we did have a surplus of $2,400, which would be carried over to the next year. So as you can see, we expended most of our money towards staff wages. The reason we did this, and this is definitely something that you can look into, is we compensated each of our staff $10 an hour that they man the booth, just as an incentive for helping out our program. We also had staff appreciation in the form of Starbucks cards, and we had to do a lot of one-time purchases just in the form of padlocks that would be used for years coming, and designing posters that we have used in this following years. One thing to note as well is that in the first year we had to pay for each of the sea containers because we did not have a partnership with a source that would provide them. This, as you will see, will change in the next 2 years. So moving on to year 2, as you can see again, a main source of funding came from Waste Management. We had the carryover funds, and then we also had the Quality Money Grant and money from Resident Services. So this budget was a bit more at just over or just under $13,000. And the reason for this is that we decided to increase the wages of each of the staff members as well as the organizers. So this is the first year that we started going through pods, and it was an awesome partnership as they donated their services free of charge to us. We also spent a lot more money towards advertising. As you can see, there's a budget line of about $1,000 there. And this was to purchase banners that would be reused throughout years to come. So that was a major expense that we only need to spend once. We also had a surplus of $4,500, which would be carried over to the next year. And then finally, this was our budget last year. So we tried last year to do it on as tight of a budget as we could. So our budget was just around $9,000, and we spent minimal on promotion. The reason for this is that we did have a very strong group of students that not only manned the containers themselves, but also who used word of mouth and their volunteerism to promote this to students on their floor. A big thing that we had here is that because we had those large banners that we had purchased in the second year, the visibility of our booths were a lot more prominent, so students were able to discover our initiative much easier. We unfortunately didn't have a funding source that followed through, so that is still an ongoing issue that we have, which we will discuss in our suggested improvements later on in this presentation. But overall, we recommend that the cost of implementation is around $10,000, and that, of course, depends on if you decide to compensate staff.
All right, so looking at our journey, you can see on the screen in front of you that we have gotten a little better each year, and our performance has improved both with our diversion rate and students involved in the program. And we have continued to recycle and donate more and more items as the years have progressed. In 2015, we recycled 8,300 kilograms, which indicates that we had a great support and interest from the students who live in our residence. As you can tell, though, our diversion rate did change or decrease a little bit from year 2, and this could be due to 2 different issues. So this is the first year that we did have weighing stations at each of the locations, as before they would actually just weigh all of the items when they got to Goodwill. Another reason that we might have decreased a little bit is that we did have removal of 3 buildings that were decommissioned this year, and part of that waste did go into the landfill count. So if we were to compare previous year's landfills amount, we would range from a 48 to 52 diversion rate, which would still be an incredible increase from years past. So Adam Swerts had some highlights that worked really well from him. The sea container-based collection system worked very well, as it was a locked container that we could store items donated overnight for the 2-week period. Staff appreciation, as always. If staff feel like they're being appreciated, they're going to work a little harder, and wanted to see this initiative succeed. So he rewarded his staff with Starbucks cards, hot chocolate during shifts, and other things. As well as we had an amazing partnership with Waste Management, the Students' Union, Goodwill, and Resident Services. Since Adam's year was the first year that this program happened on our campus, he had quite the list of areas of improvements. So partnership commitments, he noted that we should have agreements with all of the funding sources in writing rather than verbal agreements, so that we have something to follow up with the companies after the project finished. Top Flight kind of failed to deliver to pick up and deliver the cages in a timely manner, so he had to work a little extra than the 2 weeks. He originally had his collection sites open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., but because of student schedules and move-out times, he suggested that the boxes be open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. As always, better promotion is something that every year can usually work on. He suggested starting to advertise in February rather than in April, just due to that in April students start studying, getting ready for finals, and they kind of don't really look at their surroundings around them other than their textbooks. Place signs in all of the garbage and recycling rooms, just to suggest to students that what they might be throwing out could go somewhere else. And large banners and maps to indicate all of the collection sites for students' ease.
All right, so now we're going to be moving on to year 2. So what worked well in the second year is that all partners delivered, and we had a new partnership with the Pods company. So with this Pods company, we were able to not only decrease our costs, but we also had storage containers that could also be locked overnight. Waste Management also provided toters, which are those big black bins that you may have seen in previous pictures, which really helped to organize our goods. One of the big things that we had this year is that students were genuinely interested in donating their goods for a good cause, rather than just being interested in the Battle of Alberta Challenge. This was a very crucial step for us because the student interest is definitely what contributes to the success of this initiative. So for year 2, we also had some areas of improvement. One of the big areas of improvement that we are still trying to push through is that we want to open this initiative up to the entire university campus and to the Northwest Calgary community. So at our university, there is a large portion of students who live off campus and very close to the school. So we thought it would be a great idea to open this up, these collection sites, as opportunities for these students to also utilize if they were moving, clearing out their closets and stuff like that. An improvement that was suggested is that for the pods containers, because this year we had used a large container and a small container, they suggested to use 2 large containers. Again, promotion is always seen as an area of improvement. One crucial improvement that we thought would be used would be a move-out email that goes out to each of the students, either with their designated move-out date or at another time, and of course more posters. Another improvement that we did implement from a recommendation, sorry about that, is scales at each station to weigh items as they came in. So in the year past, we did have the actual containers that were taken to weigh scales off the highway, weighed the entire thing, and then were then taken to Goodwill to be emptied. This obviously caused problems because getting the companies to take those, and it was out of the way. So by having scales at each station and weighing items as they came in, it would alleviate some of this problem. And then last year, so this is the year that Jen and I were the main coordinators. So we can speak highly as to what worked well and what didn't work well. So the biggest thing that worked well is the international student participation. So as I mentioned in the first slide there, it is a big issue that international students are having to buy all their bedding, simple kitchen stuff, and then only using it for 1 semester or 8 months. So it was a great incentive for international students to be able to give back their lightly used items and have it go to people in need. The weighing stations were awesome. We had one at each desk with the students, and then they would individually weigh each item based on what they were categorized, and then the students or the volunteers themselves would be able to organize the bins appropriately. Our partnership with Goodwill was absolutely incredible. I can't speak highly enough to how well Goodwill handled all of the requests that we had, because our bins were filling up way faster than we ever expected, and they came multiple times throughout our program in order to empty these, in order for us to be able to continue completing this program, because they were so full that it was a little crazy at times. Another thing that we implemented was a safety orientation. So unfortunately, sometimes in Calgary it is very cold during move out, so we did include safety orientation as to what the appropriate clothing to wear, tripping hazards, how to organize the bins in ways that protected the student safety, and also how to properly approach the bins when they were being emptied out by the large Goodwill trucks. So an area of improvement that we suggested is to establish a pickup schedule with Goodwill in order to empty the pods appropriately. A way to do this is to have the move-out numbers provided from resident services in order to best predict what days we'd be having to accommodate large numbers of students moving out. We also suggest organizing the containers differently. The main area that we had issues with was in terms of non-perishable food items. So with non-perishable food items, we were getting such large volumes that we didn't really have ways to organize this appropriately. So that would definitely be a way to improve. We also would like off-campus students to be able to bring their stuff as well. And then to monitor the recyclables removed from Blue Planet. So a portion of this initiative is that it was eco-move-out in all ways. So we wanted to also encompass things such as recyclable beverage containers, cardboard, paper, that was also being diverted from landfill. So we actually got numbers that were provided from Blue Planet, which is who takes their recyclables away from the university. And we compared months previous to the month of April, and then whatever the surplus was in the month of April was other goods that we added on to our diversion rate, because this was above what is typical of students. We also would suggest media coverage in order to promote this to outside the campus community, and to have a partnership with the sustainability office on campus. This would also create awareness to off-campus community. Yeah.
All right, so moving forward, some of the things that we would like to see coming years develop is memorandum of understanding, just to make sure that all the partners fulfill their responsibilities as well as the promises that they had made to the project, just because we have had some issues, so we want that to be secured before the project occurs. Have a self-sustaining plan. So, like Lakshmi said, this has been an initiative and a pilot program for the last 3 years, and as you have seen, been quite successful on our campus. So we would like to develop this project so that it can be easily started every year, so that the staff who are coming in each and every year don't have to go through all the issues of finding funding every single year, that it can already be in place for them. So how to implement this program on your campus. So before you actually start running your program, there are a few things that you will need to finalize, such as a budget proposal, so where you'll be spending money, where you'll be getting your funding, as well as what areas you will need to actually spend money and what areas will be donated. Also, secure your funding before the project actually begins. That way you have the funding before you need it. Develop a memorandum of understanding, again, like I said, so that all parties understand the agreement that they had made. Creating a schedule for your campus, so what days, what hours, and what weeks it will be offered for your students. Volunteer recruitment, this is huge. We could not have run this program without our volunteers, so finding enough to sustain all of the locations and hours that the bins are open is definitely needed. Promotions, we suggest having posters on every floor of your buildings. Use social media a lot. Word of mouth was huge for us, and that's how we got our increased interest. Hire all of your staff, go through training, create schedules. Have the containers moved onto campus at least 1 to 2 days before your project is actually going to begin. All of the toters and electronic cages, also we suggest having 1 to 2 days before your projects begin. That way, on the day of, everything is all set up and ready to go.
Perfect. So I'll be talking about what needs to happen during Eco Move Out. So at our university, we had the program running from April 18th to May 1st, and this corresponds to people's final exam schedules and move-out dates. We had the bins open for 6 hours per day, which was between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They were manned by 2 staff per pod, and there were 2 pods at each of the 3 locations, so for a total of 6 bins. We had the safety orientation implemented ahead of time, which recognizes trip hazards and how to dress appropriately. We labeled all the stations and divided them into 3 domains. So one of the domains we had was electronics, the other was non-perishable food items, and the final was anything that would be able to be donated towards Goodwill. So that includes clothing, bedding, kitchen, bathroom, furniture, anything of the sort. eCycle provided separate metal cages. So what these are is they're basically what they sound like. They're metal cages, and that was just for ease of eCycle actually coming to pick up these goods. They would bring their little forklift in and take them out, so that was really handy to have that. Pods, as we mentioned previously, was the provider of our sea containers, which for lack of a better word is just storage units that are movable. And they were able to be locked. This is definitely crucial in order to avoid any goods being stolen or damaged throughout the project. Waste management provided big recycling bins, also called toters, which we used to collect all the goods and organize them within each bin. We completed weigh-ins at the time of drop-off. So how it would work is that a student would come with their goods, and the volunteers that would be working each bin would split it into the categories mentioned above as electronics, non-perishable, and donatable goods, and then they would weigh it and make it into a log entry. We decided not to say no to anything that was donated unless it was obviously garbage. The reason behind this is that we figured that Goodwill would be able to decide if they would have any use of it, and if Goodwill decides that it would not be of use, they would be able to dispose it at their facilities. We accepted things that ranged from bedding, kitchen supplies, clothing, electronics, furniture, non-perishable food items. We actually had a foosball table one year. Like, there's been some very interesting items donated, but like I said, it's all going to a really great cause, so it's pretty awesome. We need to have some data tracking and documentation in place. Whether this is just to keep track of what hours your staff are working or what individual things are being dropped off, there does need to be some sort of a data tracking program in place. So another big thing that can help you combat and prepare is that getting the residents' move-out numbers between your move-out dates. So how we would do this is that Resident Services provided us with a list of how many students were expected to move out each day, and because of this we were able to better organize ourselves, call Goodwill ahead of time to empty bins out before those busy dates, and just to be a little mentally prepared for some of the craziness that happens. So a really amazing thing that you need to have done is that you need to have communication with Goodwill and eCycle in order to come and empty out the containers as needed. We were lucky enough that eCycle didn't need to come throughout our project, just on the final day, but like we said, Goodwill was amazing at coming throughout our project in order to do that. Frequent pickups are needed. The last day, Jen and myself had to lug all of that weight of food over to the campus food bank, so it would definitely be recommended to have these pickups throughout your program. And then finally, how to implement the Eco Move Out program. This is the things that you need to be doing after the program. So most of this stuff was actually done on May 1st, which was our final day of move out. There were no students that were moving out on this day, but we did still staff the booths in order to have our student volunteers able to help us with getting everything just in place for pickup. So the final drop-off to Goodwill happened, and that was from pods. They picked up the containers, and they actually shipped them specifically to the Goodwill warehouse, where they were emptied out by the Goodwill staff, and then all of the waste management toters were kept at the Goodwill state warehouse to be picked up by waste management. So we submitted all of our final numbers to waste management, and this was in order to receive our diversion rates, and also when we were initially competing in the Battle of Alberta, these were the numbers that were put into our totals. So like I said, the sea containers were removed from campus, the Battle of Alberta challenge, and then we also had review budget tracking sheets. So this is essential in order to make sure that all of the funds that were initially promised at the beginning of this initiative were able to be collected. It's also a great time to have a wrap-up meeting and just to record any final thoughts between all parties as to how to improve it for the following years. We also suggest making annual reports, and this is because this is a student-run initiative and it is passed down from year to year, so these annual reports are crucial in order to pass down your knowledge to years to come.
So that concludes our presentation, and now we will be happy to take any questions.
We can answer the question that Bruce had mentioned as what kind of scale is being used for weighing. We had electronic scales that actually had, they look like bathroom scales, but they're a bit more industrial. They're about the same size of a bathroom scale, and then they had the actual weighing screen was separate from it. So basically an industrial bathroom scale is what we use.
These are also donated from Goodwill for our use. So if you're looking into getting those, I would contact the donation organization in your area. For Sarah, who asked how do we manage the large amount of space needed to store furniture donations. So for our campus, because we haven't really gotten to the outside off-campus students, we actually don't really get a lot of like couches or huge chairs because those are residents' property. So those do come in the student's room. However, when stuff like computer chairs or extra like little side tables, they can be stored in the actual pod. So when you can see the picture on the screen right now, they are quite large and can hold quite a bit of stuff. That being said, if you do get some kind of furniture that is huge and can't be stored, We had a great relationship with Goodwill, and they definitely would have come and picked that up from us right away.
Yeah, we actually got from off-campus community, we did have a couple mattresses that people just dropped off in the middle of the night because they saw that we were doing this, and in that case, the mattresses were either leaned up against the side of the container, or if they were like a twin-size mattress, we were able to fit those inside the pod containers. Just as an interesting fact, as you can see in this picture here, one of the first pictures that were in our presentation that show, I'll get Lakshmi to switch back, shows this is Brianna, one of our volunteers. So that is the craziest day. That was May 1st, so that was all of our goods being given to us. We had to individually go through and weigh all of that stuff and then fit them in the containers. And then if you go to the next picture, so this picture here is actually taken on the exact same day that that last picture is taken. So that just goes to show that at the beginning of the day, these pods were empty, and at the end of the day, we were able to have all of that stuff accumulated within the span of 6 hours. So that just goes to show how crucial our relationship with pods was.
For the question that had concerns about contamination for food, so we only collected canned goods or like boxes of Kraft dinner, pasta, cereals that were unopened. So same things that you would donate to a food bank is only things that we took. So if things were half open, plastic wrapped in like a student's like reusable container, unfortunately we did have to turn those away because of contamination and food going bad.
All right, we'll go ahead and give folks a few more minutes to put in any questions that they might have for our presenters. While that is happening, I just want to make a quick announcement. On behalf of the Professional Development Committee and the Communications Committee, we do have a survey that's going out to our membership just to find out how we can better improve our services and how we can have more awesome webinars like these ones. So it looks like we do have some more questions, so the link is there. If everyone in this webinar would take the survey, that'd be super great. But I'll go ahead and turn back to our presenters for a few more questions that have just come up. Ladies?
All right, so do you know the dimensions?
I have no idea.
We can get back to you on the dimensions of these pods. The first one was pretty square, and the second one was rectangular. They were quite large, but we can definitely get back to you, Sarah, as to the actual dimensions. In terms of the questions regarding bedding, we didn't have any issues with Goodwill because of how Goodwill works in our city. These are items that the general community would be donating anyways. They would be donating their old bedding. They would be donating their old clothing. So they would actually go through and wash all the bedding before it was given out to other people, but it would be just the same as any other donation that was given to Goodwill.
Do you want to talk about the bed?
We're just trying to see all the other questions. You gotta go up to the other chat. That one. Perfect. You have to hit the actual button. Oh, perfect.
Do you want to talk?
So I would say we've been very fortunate to not have any bed bugs in our furniture or even in residence the past 2 years. And I would say that one of the main reasons for that is around two years ago, we did bring in the dogs to come in and sniff out and potentially do the inspection in residence, and we did every single building was inspected for potential bed bugs, and then appropriate treatments were made. And this has really helped us in the last 2 years. And then the other thing is our students are not allowed to bring furniture or mattresses into our residence, so that could be one of the reasons. So we've been really fortunate with not having bed bugs in any of our furniture the last 2 years.
And then for Sarah, how many students do we have living on res? We have 2,200 students last year. With the demolition of the last three buildings and the building of our new buildings, we have 2,800 students. currently living with us. So it is quite a number of students that we have involved or could be involved in our initiative and project.
One recommendation that we could make that we haven't talked about previously is that that big bin that you saw with all of the items in front of it, that came mainly from the one that was centered across our apartment-style residences. So an improvement that we definitely have is to have these locations that were more central to students that have more goods to donate. So in past years, we did have them outside of each first-year residence, but obviously in dorm-style living, you do not have the same amount of goods to donate. So definitely, if you're looking to implement this in your campus, take a look at what kind of students would be having the most goods to donate and then placing them appropriately.
All right, we do have time for a few more questions if anyone has any. Awesome. So presenters, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share our a good practice. And if you would like to have any follow-up questions, or if you'd like for us to share any particular implementation step, we would be happy to share that information through the Northwest Takuho webinar. And unfortunately, the slide with our contact information is not here. So I will say that for any questions, you can contact me directly at L as in Lisa, S as in Sam, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, G as in George, A as in Apple, R as in Robert, A as in Apple at ucalgary.ca. And or you could pass the questions to Kate, and I will be happy to take those questions back to our student leaders.
Perfect. Yes, we really appreciate not only the opportunity for Jen and I to learn how to do a presentation like this, but it was also an initiative that we are very passionate about. And working in this environment, it was definitely interesting to see how many students really appreciate this. So we're definitely fortunate for the opportunity to share our experiences with you guys. And like Lakshmi said, if you guys have any questions or if there's student organizations on your campus that you think might be interested in an initiative like this and they would like to talk to a student as to how to implement it, Jen and I are more than willing to field these questions. So, yes.
Awesome. Well, once again, a very big thank you to our presenters today. You all did a fantastic job, and the information was excellent. I'm sure, as you can see, our colleagues agree very much. So thank you all very much. And for everyone else, I hope that you all have a great rest of your day and a fantastic weekend. So once again, thank you very much to Jen, Chelsea, and Lakshmi.
And Jamie, I'm going to pop in here really quick. This is Kate Flowers, and I'm one of the co-chairs for the Professional Development Committee. Thank you all so much for presenting. It was just excellent. The region who received a scholarship from Northwest Takuho to attend the National Housing Training Institute. So they're going to talk a bit about that experience. That's Drew Satter and Richard Peralta. That's going to be exciting. And I will send a thank you email to everyone who RSVP'd for this presentation, and I will send Lakshmi's email in that so everyone can get that information. So have a wonderful day, everyone, a great Friday, and a wonderful weekend.